Hey, it's Jay, and it's time to jabber. Hello to you, and welcome to this week's episode. Now, I've had various ideas this week about what I was going to do in this video. I was going to talk about the issue about Glasgow Pride and the fact that drag queens and kings were going to be banned from performing there due to the possible effect it might have on trans people, but due to the outrage of this, the decision has been overturned. So I was going to talk about the difference between transgender, transvestite, cross-dressing and drag and all of those things. I was going to talk about the horrendous and disturbing arrest and apparent suicide of Sandra Bland in America. It's happened a while back, but the arrest video has only recently been released, and the inconsistencies in the video, the fact that it jumps and the audio continues but the video jumps, and there's more questions that have come up about that. The fact that she was a Black Lives Matter campaigner, and there's so many questions around that. I was going to talk about that. Whilst I was reading up about that, I read somewhere that the amount of deaths associated with arrest or when in custody in the last month in America is more than similar deaths to do with arrest or in custody in the UK in the whole of the 1900s. 1 month in America is more than the whole of 100 years in the UK. And then today, I believe Theresa May has announced that it's not good enough in the UK, and there has to be a inquiry about deaths in custody here. If we're doing that, what on earth is happening in America? And I was going to talk more about that as well. I was going to talk about the fact that it's VidCon right now, and that we've got Summer in the City coming up next month, and YouTube and all things like that. I was going to include in that a discussion about a YouTube magazine that I saw, how the majority of the people on the front of it were A, white, and B, cisgendered, as it were. So I was going to talk about that. I was going to talk about how the leadership race for the Labour Party is getting to a point where it's getting very personal, with ex-Labour leaders attacking verbally some of the candidates. Jeremy Corbyn, for example, seems to be on a rise and is very, very popular with the voting public, but not within the party itself. I was going to explore that a bit more. Then on the news I saw about the Louisiana shooting, how 2 women have lost their lives, as well as the shooter himself, and I looked into that and whether it was race related or a terrorist act and all things like that, and I was going to look a little bit more about those things. But then a couple of things have trumped all of that for me, and I think it's because, as the title of this video suggests, we do actually all live in our own personal bubbles. There are things that go on in the world, and we take note of them and we think about them, but because they don't affect us directly, it doesn't permeate through into our own lives. We sit and all of these atrocities, all of these things that are happening, and we go, oh right, yeah, okay, but because they don't affect us directly, we just see it as a piece of news. But these news items affect people's lives directly. May not affect us, but we need to recognise that they do affect people's lives directly. The 2 things that I've read about, both on social media this week, that have actually affected me a little bit more, were that in a town very, very close to me, apparently, allegedly, well, I don't even know if it was allegedly, I saw a post saying that two females had pulled up in a car park to sort something out, and then they saw a man 10 foot or so in front of them pull a gun out and point it at the car. They managed to get away. They phoned the police, and apparently this man was caught. But that's just up the road from me, and that is close to home. The other thing I've seen on social media today is that there is a man in a town, again just up the road from me, who has been charged with sexual assault of minors, and has been, according to what I saw, released on bail until September, when he will face those charges. And apparently this has happened previously, in 3 years ago, I believe it was. And apparently, if it's all to be believed, I went to school with this person. I don't remember him, but apparently he was in my class. And that is some scary news. It's perhaps takes something that affects you directly, that comes through into your own personal bubble, before you start thinking about the wider consequences of these things. Happened to me before with my health. If something happens to you directly or within your family, you tend to think about it more than if you just know about it. I went through kidney failure, dialysis, and a kidney transplant. Before that, myself, my family, my close friends hadn't really even thought about kidney disease and associated things with that. But because it happened to me, because it happened within a personal bubble, then you find out more about it, you learn more about it. And I think that's just how we live in life, I suppose, because we cannot worry and be concerned about everything that we see on the news or we read on social media. But it's scary to think that within these personal bubbles, it takes something to affect either ourselves, our families, or our friends before we actually think about it on a deeper level. We all live in a bubble, and as long as that bubble is undamaged, we go through life not worrying. Sometimes I think maybe we need to look outside that bubble. We need to look to where we can help others. We need to take notice of what's going on within other people's bubbles, because one day maybe what's happening to them could happen to us, and it's something we need to think about. That's all I'm going to talk about this week. Thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.